You're listening to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcast on preventing radicalisation.
As more and more young Europeans are seduced by the narrative of radicalisation and violent extremism, MEPs prepare for November's Strasbourg Plenary session with a resolution to prevent radicalisation and the recruitment of young Europeans by terrorist organisations. Given the desperately tragic attacks on the night of Friday the 13th of November in Paris, the issue of tackling radicalisation has become even more urgent.
Pour a drop of water onto a pan of hot oil and it will splash out in all directions. Pour it onto cold oil and nothing will happen. This simple physical observation can be used to explain why so many young Europeans are joining the ranks of terrorist groups and why it is so important to prevent radicalisation in the first place.
In fact, it takes extremists no more than 6 to 8 weeks to bring radicalised individuals to their cause and turn them into potential terrorists. The European Parliament estimates that around 5,000 Europeans have joined terrorist organisations such as ISIS, Daesh and Jabhat al-Nusra to fight their cause in the Middle East and North Africa.
The big problem is that when these young people come back to Europe, often with blood on their hands, they pose a high security risk to our societies. So what is the EU going to do to prevent this internal security threat?
Well, in the aftermath of the terrorist attacks in France and elsewhere in early 2015, the European Council defined 3 strands for immediate response: ensuring the security of citizens, preventing radicalisation, and cooperating with international partners.
In April 2015, the Commission presented its European Agenda on Security, which includes measures such as deleting illegal content that spreads violent extremism via the internet, reinforcing the Radicalisation Awareness Network, and setting up a counter-terrorism centre within Europol to increase EU support for member states in the fight against terrorism.
The European Parliament has not been less active in this field. It has insisted on the need to combat the root causes of radicalisation leading to violent extremism, and it's stepped up work to finalise the Passenger Name Record Directive by the end of the year.
In October, the Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs approved the draft report by French MEP Rachida Dati on the prevention of radicalisation and the recruitment of European citizens by terrorist organisations. So what are the key points of this report?
Well, the report points at the problem of radicalised Europeans travelling freely across the Union in the borderless Schengen area, and it calls for more cooperation and information exchange between national police and judicial authorities and EU agencies such as Europol, Eurojust and CEPOL.
It also stresses the need for a common definition of foreign fighters to allow criminal proceedings against them and insists on the need to combat online radicalisation and recruitment.
All this bearing in mind that the focus should be on preventative rather than reactive measures and ensuring that security is not achieved by totally limiting EU citizens' rights and civil liberties, such as the freedom of speech and movement. The balance between security and privacy is becoming ever harder to strike given the tragic attacks in Paris.
On November the 24th, this report will be submitted to plenary vote. You're listening to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcasts.